Hi, this is H. Victoria Hargro Atkerson. I'm an author and a writer, and I've been away for a few days. I went to the Jersey Shore, and I went fishing and crabbing, things I love to do. I mean, if you really want to relax and enjoy being alive, the Jersey Shore is a place to be. The air is wonderful, and it's just a magical place to be. For me, it's really great. I love to fish and I love to crab and I love eating them most of all. So try it. I think you'll like it. Uh, Before I left to go on my little short vacation, we were talking about what it takes to be a writer, and we talked about you have to own it, you have to identify yourself as a writer, then you have to sit down and do the job of a writer. There are a lot of other things that go into it, but the next thing I want to cover is the story itself. So the next thing you want to do is to think about what genre you're going to be writing in. What are you going to write about, and what division of the book world are you going to take on? Are you going to be a fiction writer? Are you going to be a nonfiction writer? Are you going to write about science fiction? Are you going to talk about or write about romance, historical events? Are you going to do children's stories? There's so much you can do. So it's up to you. You're in charge of this whole thing. So take a look at each one, think about your subject matter, and then find out where it fits. So get busy, make that decision, then you're going to sit down and write. So the first thing you want to do when you're writing is to think about, how am I going to get a reader just to get involved in this story? So you want to find something that's going to really grab their attention. Something, in at least in that first chapter, you got to build something up that you want them to either to help them experience what that story is about. So how are you going to do that? Think about it. I have to bring this home to them. I have to touch something special in them that's going to make them curious and going to make them continue reading your story, right? So be sure to think about that, give it some consideration, okay? The next thing you want to do is, no matter what you write about, you're going to make sure that it is consistent, the characters are consistent, and the storyline is consistent. So make sure that if you're talking about a person, like I was talking about fishing, a person who goes out and fish, they're out doing um, some part of the fishing process, whatever it is. Say we're catching a fish, so you're going to talk about what they need to do that. What are the specifics of it? You want to give lots of details when you're writing, because that brings home that picture. It brings that whole atmosphere in for the reader, and the environment that you're writing about. That becomes a part of your story. So never ever forget the surroundings, the environment, the place, the city, the state, the type of scenery that's around them. If, like, you're in a park, you want to describe it into details. Talk about the trees, the rock formations. Maybe there's a babbling brook somewhere. Maybe there's a waterfall somewhere. Give them the details so they can feel like they're part of that story, and they are outside of the story, but they're observing it and they become emotionally invested. And speaking of emotions, you want to make sure that you write about the emotional aspect of a situation. Say fishing, you want to make sure you capture the joy of catching that fish and the joy of catching a big fish, which is really thrilling. And if you're doing some crabbing, you want, like I was this weekend, you want to talk about those things that make crabbing successful, because it took me a while to really um, catch on to that process and to know exactly what I was doing, but I learned it and it was really cool. But there are all types of things that you want to talk about. You want to also deliver something unexpected in your storylines, like I had on my on my trip to the shore. I was pulling up the crab basket to see what treasures, big fat crabs that was in there so I could have a wonderful feast when I got home. But I found a gigantic eel, a big, long, disgusting looking black eel that just did not stop. It was like the largest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Uh, and I did not expect that in a crab trap, but it was there. I was shocked. I was surprised. I was scared because I didn't want anything to do with an eel, so I just threw the trap back into the water because I was scared to death. So think about things like that and how you can bring that home for that reader. Think about situations that you can talk about. Like I said, give them details, but you want to give them the emotional part of the story. You want to give them the aspect of the story that attaches to their hearts and their minds because they are going to be invested in this process. Like if I tell the story about this disgustingly long fat eel I caught in my in my crab trap, but that was total fear, believe me. It was absolutely unreal. But after I got over the shock and calmed myself down, I went back to crabbing, which was quite successful. I love crabbing and I love to fish. So I'm not going to stop, but I'm careful now when I pull that crab trap up because I don't want to catch anything that's weird, or I don't want to have to handle anything that's weird. So that's my little fishing story for today. Now, as I said, make sure you give lots of details. Details, because that's what's going to bring the whole experience home to that reader. You're going to talk about your crabbing in this brackish water. You're going to talk about the wonderful plant life, excuse me, plant life that grows around that area. You can also talk about the type of birds that can be seen, the seagulls, the robins, all kinds of different things that you want to convey to the reader. Talk about the salt air, how wonderful it is to be out there and have a breeze blow when it's hot as the dickens and you just want to get this done, but you have this wonderful breeze, that salty air that just blows on you, that relieves you. It's really amazing. So make it personal, make it emotional, let them feel it, and make sure your storytelling is consistent with the storyline throughout the story, that the characters also are consistent. And when you think about characters, your characters can also be the environment or the location or a particular place. It doesn't have to just be a person. So think about that when you're writing and drop me a line. Let me know how you're doing, okay? Now, before you go, be sure to like this program, put a thumbs up, and then subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. It will be fun having you every time up on the air, okay? Now, this is my latest. This is Enslaved, and please pick up a copy if you haven't already. Talking about details, darlings, there's a lot of details in this one, and I love doing the research on this project because I learned some things that I didn't know about slavery. So it's been great again. So be sure to subscribe to my channel before you go now, okay? Now, love someone special, and then love to you. Take care.